and welcome to the Healing Word of the Week podcast with me, Marissa of Marissa Moments, where you might get triggered into seeing your own reflection, but it's to reconnect you to yourself and awaken the divinity within. So prepare for laughs, resonance, and accountability through true stories, channeled messages, prophetic words, and everything in between. So I hope you're ready because guess what? Here we go. Hey y'all, so the word of the week is cycle. Cycle, like C-Y-C-L-E. Yeah, I think that's it. And as a quick side note, you might hear my family hollering in the background. They're actually playing a game right now, living their best summer life. So we're just going to go with it, right? Because life goes on. Obla-di-blah, right? So anyway, cycle. The reason why Spirit put on my heart to share this with you, and I'm also kind of getting myself together, so you might hear some other stuff in the background. But anyway, let's move right along. The reason why Spirit has me share the word cycle with you is because I feel like there's a lot of tests coming up that kind of present themselves in the form of a cycle, right? Because what I hear and what I receive is that Spirit, God, ancestors, angels, and saints, whomever you believe in, I respect you, walk in it. I believe in God, just putting that out there, but let's keep it moving. I feel like God right now is testing a lot of us to see if we are strong enough, is what I hear, to break the cycle, right? So let me tell true story, right? Sometimes people cross my mind, and it's not necessarily people what did I just say? It's not necessarily people who have been completely great to me, right? In the past, maybe they've just been present enough, for me to build some sort of, not even necessarily healthy bond, but an unhealthy bond with them, right? Because a lot of my life, I've been focused on fear, right? It's been fear-based. I've had abandonment issues. I fear seeming like I know too much. I fear feeling like I'm being led by my ego, all of these different things. And God has been working on me with every single bit of it. But we're talking about that cycle portion, right? So the reason I'm bringing that up is because, like I said before, a lot of these people have been crossing my mind lately. And my typical response would be to send a text, right? I'd be like, hey, you crossed my heart. I knew I wanted to send you a text. And maybe they would respond and maybe they wouldn't. But what I feel right now, the reason why people are crossing our hearts is because God is, like I said, testing us to see if we're still going to revert back to that needy energy is what I hear, right? That fear-based energy, that feeling of not being enough, or feeling as if we have to continue to settle because that's the best we can do, right? And when I say that's the best we can do, I'm referring to, in this specific circumstance, being in an unhealthy relationship, being in an unbalanced dynamic. Now, I'm talking about friendships, relationships, partnerships, all the ships, right? Because let's just be honest with one another. If you are putting in all the work in a relationship, then you're not in a relationship with someone else. You're in a relationship with yourself, right? And the illustration that God has been giving me is in terms of being tethered to the past, right? And when we're tethered to something, it's holding us back. It's preventing us from moving as far ahead as we have the potential and capacity to do had we not been tethered. And so often what happens is we end up tethering ourselves to the past by repeating cycles. And in this situation, it would be me reaching out with a text and then getting in my head about it and saying, man, they didn't respond, or they responded and they didn't even ask about me, right? How many times have we had conversations with people and you could be on the phone with them for an hour, and at the very last, maybe 5 minutes, they'll say, oh, and hey, how is so-and-so? How have you been doing? And it feels very scripted, right? Like almost like an obligation where, oh yeah, I have to check this off the list, right? Now, that's not to say that people don't have major things going on in their lives where sometimes they get caught up in it. But if that's an every time situation and scenario, then again, this is where we ask ourselves, are we in a relationship with someone else, or are we in a relationship with ourselves? And whatever result you get, listen, it's completely up to you. I'm not telling you to leave anybody. I'm not telling you to abandon anybody. I'm not even telling you to turn your back or give them the cold shoulder or anything like that. What I am telling you is this information so that way you can be mindful about it and make an informed decision, not just based off of your previous fear, not just based off of your previous programming or toxic mindsets or trauma-based fears and all of these different types of things, right? We have to get to a certain point where we say enough is enough. And that is why God often puts us in these cycles, right? Has us revisit our own personally made hell loops in a very, very tangible way. So that way we can be even more aware and we can make the decision consciously as to whether or not we choose to break that cycle. Now, for me, I chose not to send a text. And you want to know what happened? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Did they reach out to me? No, they didn't. And that's completely fine too. Listen, I never wish any ill will on anyone. But I will say what I've noticed is that people who have done me dirty, they do not do well in the long run. I always say that I'm one of God's favorites, and I don't say that in a egotistical way, right? I say that because I've noticed that I get my instant karma, right? I get my literal Godsmacks instantaneously. But I also walk in favor, right? And so by being one of God's favorites, as I love to say, humbly speaking, there are certain repercussions to it. So don't do me dirty. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about cycles. What cycle is being presented to you today, or maybe this week, or maybe even last month, that you noticed? Or listen, maybe sometimes you don't even notice right away. You notice in hindsight, Captain Hindsight to the rescue, and it's always 2020, where you're like, dang it, I did it again. I did it again. At what point have you told yourself, man, I did it again? That is the cycle. That is you becoming painfully aware of something that you constantly do to yourself. And maybe, sure, you put the blame on that other person. Maybe you start to get angry. Maybe you start to get resentful and all these things. But for what? Right? I believe it was the last podcast that we were talking about anger. Like, what is the point of it? Sure, yeah, it's a true emotion and you will feel it. But why carry it with you? What is the sense of that? 9 times out of 10, the other person isn't even thinking about you. And that's just real, right? But we're talking about breaking the cycle. We're talking about cycles that are presented to us in such a way that they can become a gift if we are mindful enough to know when we are being presented with the opportunity to break a cycle that has gotten us nowhere in the past. Are you being mindful of it? And if you haven't been thus far, that's okay. That's why you're listening to me right now. Because listen, let me tell you, if it hasn't presented itself yet, that means it's to come. And the reason you're listening to me right now is so that way you will be able to easily recognize it when it happens and be easily ready, willing, and able to make the air quotes right decision. And when I say air quotes right decision, we're talking about the best decision for you in this here and now, or the then and there, right? Either way, I'm not going to keep going on and on. Hopefully you're picking up what I'm putting down because, listen, we are being tested and cycles will continue to repeat until you decide to break that chain, until you decide to break that cycle, until you decide that there is another way out there. So that's it for now. Thank you so much for listening. I love sharing, all of these true life stories and all of this healing channeled knowledge that I feel gifted with from God to share with you, because we're all on this healing journey together. It's not just you. We are walking together. And I appreciate and love the fact that you trust me enough to walk with me. So hopefully I'm giving you some insight that is shining a light and offering you a flashlight on your journey through this darkness. Because sometimes, and more often than not, it's so much better to walk with a friend than it is to walk alone. Not to say we won't have to walk alone, but it's so much cooler when we can walk with a friend, especially with someone who understands. So thank you so much for being here with me. Feel free to comment, share, post, like, subscribe, all the different things. And don't forget to tune in every single week, every Monday morning, 5:55 a.m. Central Standard Time. I do release a new podcast. So make sure you come back every single week and check the archives. I have so many different podcasts available for you. I'm making it easy now, so you can just pick whatever word resonates with you. Whatever word you're drawn to, listen to it, take what resonates, and leave whatever else to the wayside. And also remember, we are no longer gatekeeping our healing. So if this message resonates, if it inspired you, if it feels true for you or someone that you know, definitely share it using your common sense, because we're also not creating enemies, right? So that's it for now. Be sure to look me up. When you look me up, it is Marissa Moments, and that is Marissa with one S, because there is only one me. So until next time, have the best day, week, month, year ever. Thank you for listening, and happy healing.